Thank you, thank you. I think you're actually correct. It was a panel last year. So it is a couple of years, and a lot has changed. And I would absolutely still agree it is one of the exciting growth sectors. So for me today, I'm going to sort of start global and just talk about the global travel picture. I'm going to hone in then on some Scotland level data, and then really talk about the agritourism opportunity, and particularly the kind of trends that we're seeing and the opportunity for you as businesses to tap into. And I'm also not going to miss the opportunity just to kind of share some of the work that we've been doing with Caroline and the team around promoting the sector and the kind of reach that we've had. So I'm going to finish up with some of that content. So to get started, let's look at the big picture. It's fair to say that we are operating in, a very disrupted world, and a lot has changed. And, there are challenges and equally opportunities in all of that. I think what we're seeing globally is that, we're seeing new markets come in to the mix, meaning that we've got more competition for attracting and growing our share of global travel. We are all thinking about how we respond, and as a sector, it's important that we do respond to things like the climate emergency. We're also seeing things like technology and connectivity really making it easier for consumers to get information, but information through different channels in different ways. And that is all things that we need to be thinking about in order to grow the share of travel to Scotland, but also to help grow your business. So I'm going to touch on some of these things throughout the course of the presentation. And, there are also challenges around cost of doing business and cost of living. So at Visit Scotland, we are here to help you look at how you can grow your business and how you can navigate through everything that is causing that change at the moment. What I would say on a positive is that, although we are seeing, particularly from the domestic market, that spend is down, the cost of living is having an impact. Value for money remains the single most important driver to travel, or when people are traveling. Actually, what is important to know is that consumers are prioritizing travel and spend on experiences over more general consumption of goods. So actually, there is a huge opportunity for us to tap into that. And it's that whole thing of that shift from actually fear of missing out to joy of missing out. People want to make memories with their friends, with their families, and that presents lots of opportunities for us here. So the big picture then, in terms of global travel, this year will see us get back to globally the kind of travel numbers that we were seeing pre-COVID. From a Scotland perspective, we have already, we are ahead of that curve from a point of view of international travel to Scotland. So we have seen really strong performance, and that has not come about by accident. That's been very much but the work that we've done with businesses like yourself, facing into that international market, but also that awareness and demand building that we did, particularly also during COVID. We didn't go silent. And I think we're beginning now to see the benefit of that, both in terms of volume but also value, and we've seen year-on-year growth since COVID. However, the staycation kind of boom that we saw just coming out of COVID, with more people prioritising holiday at home, has definitely, we saw that a shift last year, and we're seeing spending slightly down on where we were, and I've got some figures of that in a moment. And what I would say there, though, is the intention, the interest in Scotland is still particularly high, particularly from that north of England market, the southeast of England, and there are audiences within that market who are more protected from, I think, some of the financial challenges that do present an opportunity. So it is definitely a more challenging market, but there are opportunities within it. When we then look back at the global picture, these 5 markets here are going to continue to be. They are the 5 most important markets to Scotland. China is only just beginning to come back because China was slow in opening up after COVID. But we're seeing strong intent there, and we can see that in things like holiday visa applications from that market, but also in the demand for travel through things like the direct route we've got coming coming into Scotland through Hainan. So there's definitely demand building there. But these are the 5 biggest outbound markets for travel globally, and it is predicted that they will continue to be so right up into 2030. And they are 5 really important markets to Scotland, and particularly the US, where we've seen, the lion's share of that growth in both volume and value. What I would say is that from a Visit Scotland perspective, we are very focused not just on these 5 markets, but also emerging markets. There are markets like Australia, for example, the UAE, India, where actually we've got a watching eye on what's happening there, because there is definitely a greater interest and intent for Scotland. And certainly the market-facing teams that I look after are very much focused on how we grow our share from a wider range of markets. When we then sort of dive into the Scotland level figures, you can see here the year-on-year growth. This is 22 into 23, and there's a lot of numbers on here, and I'm sure we'll share these slides with you, but you'll see that both in terms of visits, nights, and spend, it's up. I think the important things to know are we are attracting a slightly longer stay, and there's an opportunity there to continue with that, and that is also about really making sure that we're delivering on the experiences those international visitors are looking for. We're also seeing that, while Q3 in the year is still our biggest in terms of volume and value, we have actually seen the season stretch with international visitors. So they are willing to come, and we're hearing that from a lot of the travel trade that we work with. Visitors are willing to come at different times a year because they also appreciate the diversity of the experience that we offer, but B, it might be a bit quieter, and actually that opportunity to kind of really immerse is even greater. So there is an opportunity with international for us to keep that focus on longer stay and that kind of shift in looking at how we grow those quieter months of the year. When we then look at domestic overnights, you'll see exactly what I was talking about a minute ago, that the numbers are certainly for between 22 and 23 are down. And I think we're saying that, that is down to maybe fewer. It's very much a short break market, as people taking fewer short breaks or just reducing the spend in that break. But the opportunity is to continue to get to those audiences, which we can do through digital channels, really understanding who is searching for holidays and how do we communicate with them. So again, goes back to really understanding the channels that people are using and making sure we're present in those channels. So from a GB perspective, we get 11% of all overnight trips. So there is still huge opportunity in this market. It is a short break market, but what you will see in the seasonality is that it drives that all year. And that's where this market is really important. I think, it's much more seasonal with international. There's an opportunity to change that, but the domestic market is really important, particularly in the last quarter of the year and the first quarter of the year, when we don't have that level of international visitors. So it remains a really important market. And then if we look at day trips, I think one of the things to note here is that the value of the day trip market, 3.9 billion. So it's huge. And that a day trip is when somebody is spending more than 3 hours away from their home. This is obviously the local market. It's 85% of our day trippers are from within Scotland. It's hugely important, particularly for those of you who have got farm retail businesses, but also experiences. If you're offering experiences, there will be an interest from the day trip market. And again, I think the thing I would note here is that all year round importance of the day trip market. And in fact, the highest spend being in the last quarter of the year, that October to December period. So again, although we've seen that suppression of volume, actually value, spend is up. And so there is an opportunity, I think, for you as a sector to kind of really continue to tap into that. When we bring it all together and look at what does it mean at a Scotland level, you'll see that 76%, so still the largest volume of our visitors are from within the UK. And when you look at the UK, one of the things I should point out is actually still the highest percentage of people holidaying at home are Scots, although we tend to get a higher spend from the English an English market. So Scots are also really important for this, making up that 76% of domestic visits. But what you can see there is that 24% of our visitors that are coming from international markets deliver 53% of the value. And for the first time in 23, we saw the value of international take over the value of domestic, and that's the first time that's happened, so that's quite a significant shift. When you then break it down and look at what does it mean by market, you start to see then the importance of that American market, particularly in terms of spend. And in the first 6 months of this year, we've seen growth again from that American market, something like 54% more trips than we saw in 23. So we are continuing to see that growth. But we can't rest on our laurels, and that does mean, that we need to keep focused on that market because it is delivering really valuable visitors. But it is important that we invest also in other markets so that we get that market mix and we drive that all year round destination that we're looking for. And we have seen growth from Canada, Australia. I've mentioned quite significant. Australia, 27%, Canada, 40%. So there are other shifts in other markets, which are obviously ones that we want to take, make sure that we capitalise on. So what does it all mean for agritourism? So agritourism sits at the heart of, I think, 3 hugely important sectors to the Scottish economy. And both food and drink and tourism are 2 of the 6 key growth sectors in the Scottish economy. And you'll see that globally, it is expected that the demand for what you offer is going to continue to grow by 11.4% between 22 and 2030. So there's a huge opportunity. And I know that Caroline's been talking about the importance of data and the fact that we really need to monitor this. We are going to be working together again, Caroline and Visit Scotland, to ensure that we roll out another growth tracker in 25, and we will be asking of you to contribute to that. It is so important that we understand the shift that we're making and all the efforts that you're putting in, that we are to market and develop the sector, that we really understand that, and that's going to be really important for those all-important conversations that we have around policy and continuing to ensure that we can invest in the sector. So that tracker will be something that we will be coming out in the autumn of 25 to ask you to complete. You will be glad to know that it will be a much slimmed down tracker, but visitor numbers will be a key thing. So if you're not tracking your visitor numbers, please do so. But I think what this slide highlights is the opportunity around really gaining our share of that global growth that's anticipated for agritourism. When we then look at some of the data that we've been gathering through our visitor survey, and this is only looking at visitors who stayed overnight, so it's not looking at the day trip market. So these numbers are really just that overnight market. So the figures will be much higher when you factor in day trip. But for the first time, we did a big visitor survey in 23. 12,000 nearly visitor surveys happened right across Scotland, over 120 sampling locations, but we also followed up with visitors when they went home and asked them exactly what did they do when they were here and how was the experience. So you can see some of the data there, and it's really interesting to note that that interest from long-haul markets, international markets in a farm shop, it's not just a local market, huge opportunity. When you look at then the number of visitors who said that they stayed in a working farm or croft at 7%, again, must be a huge opportunity to grow that. And again, you're seeing that interest not just from the UK market, which I would expect, but also that international market. Again, opportunity. Looking then at more kind of general travel trends, I've talked about, value for money. I think value for money, convenience of the ability to book and have a seamless booking experience, these are things that are now mandatory. They are the basics that visitors will expect. I think we're also seeing that kind of increased focus on sustainability and visitors looking to us to have as a destination, and in terms of the businesses, in terms of what are we doing to ensure that their holiday experience is one that we've kind of taken care of for them from a point of view of sustainability. So it's much more in their conscious, it's much more in the decision-making process, but the expectation is that we are taking care of that. I think the other factors here are really the opportunity for you, because what's come out of, I think, the most recent trends and survey data is that people are prioritising that spend on themselves, on making memories, on wellness. They're looking for, that personal discovery, and they're looking for authenticity. And I think those trends play exactly into what you offer as a sector. And then this is actually looking at, I think it's Barclaycard data, which they did a big study on the experience economy. And it interestingly highlights, that point that people are willing to spend money on making memories, that joy of missing out. And interestingly, quite high up on that is actually food and drink experiences. So again, kind of huge opportunity if you're thinking about growing your business and thinking about the type of experience. So outdoor and food and drink experiences are really high up there in how people want to spend their time and their money. And then when you look at more broadly, again, back to sort of our own visitor survey data here, you can see that the reasons for choosing Scotland, there are many aspects to that, but again, plays into what you offer as a sector. So that connection with nature, the outdoors, and being able to spend time with family and loved ones. And we do see, a growth particularly in groups, families, friends coming together, and again, it's there for that interest in sort of self-catering as well, and those kind of more unusual types of accommodation that you offer is also where we are seeing an increase in demand globally. And so what does it mean going forward? It's going to be about people. I think when people travel is all about connecting with people, isn't it? And our visitors to Scotland want to really understand more about who we are, our culture, our values, our stories, and all of that is delivered through great storytelling. And therefore, that people with passion is so important as part of that visitor experience. It's about immersive experiences, and it's also about experiences that will lead to sort of self-discovery and self-fulfillment. So we are seeing people wanting to get hands-on. So it's actually about, not just looking, but it's also about, kind of really getting involved and experiencing what we offer. And again, lots of opportunities for you as a sector. I think the other big driver of change, which I touched on at the beginning, is obviously around that whole digital piece and the way that consumers are, looking and indeed booking their travel. And we've seen a real shift to the way people are searching. So we're seeing platforms like YouTube, TikTok being the fastest growing channels for people looking for curated information. And it's very much about video and visual information and people-first content. So those are the big drivers of, I think, capturing people's imagination and doing the storytelling that we need to be thinking about both as a destination and in your business. And the way that people are going to search will continue to evolve, and we're seeing search be disrupted through things like AI and the changes that Google are making, which means that they might even not get to a website like Visit Scotland because the AI technology within the Google platform, for example, is meaning that people's questions are being answered not necessarily before they even get to our website. So the key for all of us is to make sure we're creating great content that AI, of course, will recognize as quality content that will be used in their search results. So there's lots for us to think about in this space and being present in the channels that visitors are using. When you look at how they're booking, you can see that does vary a little bit by market. And this is booking accommodation data. It doesn't add up to 100% because people will do more than one thing. And again, it'll depend on the type of trip that they are booking. But you see the importance of booking direct. But But what that means, however, is that they will have shopped around. They will have been on, the OTA sites. They will do, because value for money being important, they're going to be looking around for deals. They are going to look for a credible accommodation. They're going to be looking on multiple sites, but that doesn't mean that they won't then come back and book direct. The key thing that you need to think about is what sites, what markets. Expedia, for example, I think I've mentioned before, the biggest OTA if you're interested in that North American market, C-Trip if you're interested in China. So you need to think about also having a presence on these sites. But you can see that the importance there of the different channels, and particularly the further a visitor is away from Scotland, the importance of intermediary channels, and whether that's an OTA or whether that's a travel agent or a tour operator. And particularly travel agents and tour operators are really important in those international markets. When we come to looking at experiences and booking experiences, we've also really seen a big shift there. I think people would used to wait till they got to the destination. Actually, that's changing, and they are now booking ahead, and you can see that there in that data. And again, multiple channels. They are looking on intermediary channels, as well as being able to have that seamless experience through your websites. So just to kind of finish up, how are we promoting Scottish Agritourism, and how are we working with the team? Very much with that focus on how we can help you grow your business through thinking about those different channels and what channels you need to be present in. We are here to give you that advice. Please talk to the team. I know they've got a stand outside. But we've also done a lot of work to look at working with businesses who want to think about new experiences. So whether that's a higher value experience, an off-season experience, or developing experience that they already have, to tap into that important intermediary travel trade market. And you can see there we've now got 68 businesses from a standing start of 0 just a few years ago, of businesses that are now working and benefiting from building relationships with travel trade. And what does that mean? It means getting those all-important bookings in the system for not just this year, but next year and the year after. So it's a way of guaranteeing business through working with intermediaries. So we're here to help with that. We also working very closely, I think, with Caroline and the team, Laura, around telling your story. And that's been about enriching the content that we are producing and creating to go through all of Visit Scotland channels, but also through our partner channels and our campaigns. And we're seeing the benefit of that in terms of the volume of traffic that are looking at agritourism content on our website. We've seen a growth in content coming on a number of keywords like farm accommodation. We are also seeing a huge reach through our social media channels. So you can see here, just the kind of scale of that. It's huge, and the level of engagement. And that's very much about us working very closely with Caroline and the team to make sure that we're spotlighting the right businesses and we're telling the right stories across the year, very much with a kind of content calendar in mind, and really tapping into those seasonal experiences and making sure that we're leveraging all of that. And then again, you'll see here the importance of Coo's Day. And I know we do a lot with Coos. Everybody loves the Highland Coo, and don't underestimate the Highland Coos, because what they do is they get us in front of an audience that's not already engaged. The reach and the sharing of Coo's Day content is huge, and it creates new followers, not just for Visit Scotland, but also for your businesses. And then just another example of some of that kind of more curated content that we're putting out through social media, which gives potential visitors an already created, or curated, I should say, itinerary. And then PR is really important as well, and you can see there the scale of the activity over this year in terms of the amount of global media that we've reached, but the number of agritourism features that we've had, and the number of new press trips that have been undertaken. So, in conclusion, I would say there are many challenges facing us as a sector, but the opportunities are there to be tapped into, both in terms of that all-important high-value international visitor who will stay longer and spend more, but also that important domestic and day trip market. And Visit Scotland, we're here to help. So, thank you.